Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, we're talking about commodities. We're talking about assets and liabilities. We're talking about commodities. And the stocks keep coming up. The bonds keep coming up. The real estate keeps coming up. So and it's like, and I keep looking around and I'm like, okay, so the research is taking us into this space. I know we covered 1619 already, and we cross-referenced a lot of those facts, but I don't want to get too far into right now uh, whether or not the slaves came here from Africa or they were prisoners of war. That argument, we're dealing with, okay, you know, you let the slaves go. Now they're trying to, organize themselves, and they're trying to get themselves together. And those efforts are being sabotaged. And it's being backed up and it's being endorsed by the government. So it's like some sort of double jeopardy or some sort of conflict of interest, whereas though the government that's governing us to for the people to bring rights, and to give the people their rights and to bring justice, blind justice to the people, are backing up the people that are sabotaging the financial efforts, the banks, law enforcement, and then they're divvying that amongst themselves and passing it down generation to generation, causing more of a gap in resources, more of a gap in finance, more of a gap in education.
So, listen, the first thing we got to understand is that the whole slavery narrative, these 4 million enslaved, you got to figure, the majority of our people wasn't enslaved. That's number one. So we got to get that out of our head. We're prisoners of war, not slaves. We're descendants of laborers or descendants of prisoners of war, not ADOS. We're not descendants of slaves, the most of us. So they don't have to keep to any of this because you're black. So the term black has no standing in laws. They don't have to keep to any of these things they signed because you don't exist. A dead man has no rights. A dead man has no voice. So they can sign any bill, any law. At the end of the day, they don't have to keep rights up or keep contracts with dead people. Okay? If you're in the grave dead, the contract that I had with you is null and void because you're dead. The same thing with the term black. They don't have to keep to any of it.
So that's where I feel like we're at, because we're talking about poor, the state of mind, poverty, and then we're looking at, wow, the position that we're in, and a lot of the reasons and the circumstances around that position. You can see why a lot of people in our community are despair when it comes to the subject of money, and they don't see the need to want to budget. They don't see the need to want to, go out and find a job. They're content with just doing things backdoor, because every time they try to show up for the system and do things the corporate, the politically correct way, they're being sabotaged. Because everyone else is in cahoots against the indigenous community. So this is what we're fighting against. But we have Islam. So Islam is supposed to wake us up, help us understand our value, and now we're able to, confront and bring solution to a lot of the things that we were oppressed, and a lot of things that we were marginalized from, or things that our solution for what our plight is and what our people are going through. And knowing that if the people came together to bring you good, they can't do so if Allah willed, unless Allah willed. And knowing that a person couldn't bring you harm unless Allah willed, even if they all came together. We have a clear example right here of everyone coming together against a group for material gain.
Whenever you try to explain to people, we got to focus on our own people, they get into this whole we are the world thing. It sounds for everybody. Nobody said your dawah shouldn't be for everybody. I'm saying your neighborhood outreach and what you do to help specific problems of a people should be for the people you come from. We're not talking about calling everybody to Tawheed. We're not. See, they don't know how to separate calling everybody to an Aikido point or fixing a broken people with the Aikido point. Where should you start? Should I take this Aikido point and fix a people who are Irish, African, Arab, or should I stay right in the indigenous community and use these skills to fix them, who I come from, who I helped to oppress with my crimes when I wasn't Muslim, or when I was Muslim, who I come from a woman from her womb.
So we got to check out Dane Calloway's Who's Responsible for Slavery. You'll find out a lot of this was labor disputes. The Civil War was a labor dispute. You'll find out that most of the slaves were pale people. You know what I'm saying? So all these rights and all these civil rights and all this freedom, they were freeing their own people. They were giving them rights. You know what I'm saying? So because the word black, understand it means blank. Who was the real black people? Who was the real African? So when you start getting into that, you start seeing this stuff start leveling out and you start understanding it better. You know what I'm saying? The idea that we were just enslaved people and how you was given land that was already mine. You know what I'm saying? It was already ours. We was already sharecropping. We was already living on the property. Because how do you now give me land when you were doing, at the same time, they were doing the Trail of Tears. So how they were doing the Trail of Tears and giving us land at the same time? You know what I'm saying? The whole history is contradictory. That's what I'm saying. But the point you're making is financial freedom. So I get the point of the article and I get, you know what I mean, all of it isn't not a lie, but I'm just saying that we got to understand it in a more complete, detailed terms so we can, truly understand what was happening. But this is my thing. They talking about 4 million slaves, right? Where was the other millions of us at? Because you talking about only 4 million people you released that were slaves, which that number is definitely exaggerated. But let's just go with that. What happened to the other millions of us because obviously the other millions of us wasn't enslaved. We were free. So what was going on with us, those other Indians, those other indigenous people? What were they doing at the time? No, they already had Negro Wall Streets. They already had farms and land. That's why they do the Indian Removal Act to not only release the prisoners of war, but at the same time they were backstabbing us, taking our land. So all this stuff, man, and all this stuff is connected. You know what I'm saying? We were still fighting them in the 1800s. We were still warring with them. So they was trying to make peace, so-called peace with us. All the letting go of the slaves, that was all part of treaties they had with us that they broke. And we trusted them. We too trusting. Even to the day, we too trusting. We still we gullible. And we believe that these treaties and these things, these economics and changing over the paper currency and not bartering it, getting away from the barter system, we thought that was going to work out for us. We thought that they was going to be honest, and it didn't. It was all a trick. You know what I'm saying? Our ancestors trusted them too much. And we in a situation because our ancestors they were too trusting and they were too gullible and naive. And this is where we at.